Hi there. The golden age of video games has arrived. It's the 1980s. The start of the 80s came with a very unique one-of-a-kind console. Instead of buying game cartridges, you bought a console that runs a single game. The idea of the console supposedly came to a Nintendo video game designer after seeing a bored businessman playing with an LCD calculator on a train. You might think that this is a pretty simplistic device, even for its time, but the Game & Watch was the earliest Nintendo product to gain major success. It came in a single-screen and multi-screen variants. It even inspired Nintendo to later make the Game Boy and the Nintendo DS. In 1982, the Atari 5200 Super System, as named by Atari, came close to the personal computer revolution, with devices like the Apple II being released. Codenamed Pam after a female employee at Atari, the 5200 would later be the source for many of the classical arcade games to come to our homes, such as Miss Pac-Man. The 5200's main competitor was the Colecovision. One of the earliest modular consoles, the Colecovision allowed gamers to buy expansion modules, much like DLCs nowadays. Looking at you, EA. These modules ranged from a cartridge system that let users play Atari's games on the Colecovision to a module that added the steering wheel for racing games. 3 years in the market before being discontinued, but not without effect, the Colecovision was the console to bring the arcade classic Donkey Kong to our homes. Which brings us to the Commodore 64. Originally not a gaming console, but a personal computer, listed in the Guinness Book of Records as the highest selling single computer of all time. Being able to plug it into any television set, it actually competed directly against video game consoles such as the Atari 2600, an earlier model of the 5200, and was later repackaged as a gaming console called the Commodore 64 GS. Speaking of computers, what about the family computer? Famicom was released in 1983 in Japan by Nintendo after settling in a better production environment. 2 years later, it hits the North American market as the legendary NES, named the single greatest video game console in history by IGN and available in retail until 2003. The NES was a beast. It was one of the origins of the video game development industry we know nowadays, where Nintendo were the first to license third-party developers to produce and distribute video games. Failing to compete with the NES, with sales in the 100K region while the NES soars in the millions, there were plenty of failed attempts by other major companies. And then, boom! SEGA comes out with the 16-bit console, said to have started the controversy on video game violence. The Genesis was a pioneer in many aspects. It was mainly targeted at teens, and everyone considered it to be the cool console of the time. Not only that, but they also released one of the best-selling video game franchises in history. Sonic the Hedgehog was intended to compete directly with Nintendo's Mario series, served as the company's mascot, and kept us up at night having nightmares of losing all our coins. But the console war is war, and war never changes. In a slightly different market, the handheld one. The Game Boy's durability and the fact that it came bundled with Tetris brought more success to Nintendo. Created by the same team that designed the Game & Watch, it sold 1 million units within a few weeks in the US, known as the second best-selling handheld console of all time, preceded by the Nintendo DS. It was the start of something beautiful.